Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon session. I hope you all had a nice lunch. This is the It's Not All About Heart, Developing a Resilient Brain session this afternoon. And I'm very honored to introduce you to two doctors, Molly Lopez and Dr. Natalie Fekoch. Dr. Lopez is director of the Texas Institute for Excellence in Mental Health, a licensed clinical psychologist and a research associate professor at the University of Texas at Austin, Steve Hicks School of Social Work. Her research interests include mental health services, child and adolescent service systems, the implementation of evidence-based practices, and school-based services. She has led a number of initiatives focused on enhancing the effectiveness of systems that interact with children and youth with mental health challenges and their families. Dr. Lopez has partnered with a variety of systems to implement or evaluate zero suicide initiatives and currently serves as the principal investigator for the Early Psychosis Intervention Network in Texas. I'd like to also introduce Dr. Natalie Fekoch. Dr. Fekoch is a mental health professional, educator with over 27 years of educational experience. Her educational experience began as an elementary school teacher, reading interventionist, professional school counselor at both the elementary and secondary levels, campus administrator, and district level administrator. She has served at the Texas Education Agency on mental health and behavioral health teams and now supports school mental health at regional level at the Southwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center Network. Yes, I looked up that acronym. I didn't. At the University of Texas in Austin. She lives by the motto, "You can't pour from an empty cup," and aspires to promote self-care and self-compassion in all areas of her life. She is passionate about growing leaders as certified Dare to Lead trainers trained by Dr. Brene Brown. Her hope is to be able to educate, oh my goodness. Her hope is to be able to educate us today. Educate and advocate on behalf of students and families in the areas of mental health, behavioral health, socio-emotional needs, and overall wellness and resiliency. Thank you and welcome.
That was a lot. Okay, I'm gonna turn this one off. All right. Okay, we got all of our stuff here. We're gonna make this work, right? It's gonna be good. All right, so we're gonna get to talk with you all today after lunch, which is like a good time to get to do some things that get our energy up and moving again, right? We're gonna talk with you a little bit today about a training that we had the privilege of being a part in called Stress Management and Resiliency Training, SMART. But we're going to give you just kind of a few skills that we learned as a part of this. It's not the full training. It usually is about 4 to 6 hours. So we're going to give you pieces of it, but we hope that it is something that kind of keeps you going. A little bit quickly about us. We are representing the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center today, the MHTTC. And that is a SAMHSA funded grant. So we have our little acknowledgement here. We're not representing SAMHSA, and those are our ideas and Dr. Sood, who is the developer of SMART. All right, we always like the chance to kind of express that we want to create a safe and nurturing learning environment. So we sort of bring this to each of our presentations, and we hope that you will join us in that. This real quickly is what the MHTTC network is. We're SAMHSA-funded training and technical assistance centers across the U.S. We are with the South-Southwest, which is Region 6, which is Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Louisiana. All right, so here we are. You got to hear way too much about us already, so we'll move on to actual content, right? Okay. How many of you all know somebody in your workplace who is tired? Right? Yes, it can be you too, but I didn't want you to have to out yourself, right? But yes, right. It sort of is the zeitgeist right now of our world that we're all pretty darn exhausted, right? We're exhausted in our work. The people that we interact with are exhausted. Our kids are exhausted. Our parents are exhausted. It's a really tough and trying time. And that is kind of the folks that we are working with. And so we want to talk a little bit today about what can we do to try and get through, bounce back from this level of exhaustion that we're all experiencing. One thing I want to kind of say before we get too far is that you can work on this work at more than one level, right? You can work on what is creating exhaustion at a systemic or organizational level. And that is really important work, right? There are things that we can do within our society, within our workplaces, within our schools to create environments that are not wearing us down as much as our current world is. And we should be doing that work. What I want to say today is we're going to talk a little bit more about what we as individuals can do and what we can help support those that we work with to do at that more individual level. But I don't want to suggest that that we are all responsible for everything and bouncing back from everything that we experience, because that's not fair, right? Sometimes the things that we are experiencing, we shouldn't have to bounce back from some of that, right? And so I also want to acknowledge that. And one of the things I want to talk about today is a little bit about how we are biologically wired to handle some of this and what we can do to be a little bit different about it, to train us up a little bit different. So where does our stress kind of live and where does our resilience live? It's really about two things. It's about our heart and it's about our brain, right? And over the years, as we've done more and more health research, just medicine itself has grown, we've learned a lot about how the brain works, right? We've learned a lot about really how the heart works. We've learned about kind of how it functions. We can do a lot of things to repair when the heart is having challenges in some ways, when it's not working the way it should. There's a lot that we can do to help repair it. We're not as far along with the brain as we are with the heart. We're learning a lot, and it's going pretty quickly, but we are still fairly far behind where we are with understanding how the heart and some of our other organs work. But we can take what we have learned and we can use that to help us do a better job at creating the brain that we want, right? One of the things that we learned as we started this training was to think about kind of our body and our brain as a car, right? So you have a car, and when you are first getting your first car, my son is he's 20 years old. He actually didn't want to drive very soon, so he's a little bit of a late driver. He's been driving now for about 6 months, and so he's thinking about a car, right? He wants a car. He's not going to be able to afford the Maserati I'm sure he would really love, right? That's not what he's going to get. He's going to have to go look for a used car that is going to get him to and from work. That's a kind of what our life is like in terms of where our brain starts when we're kind of born and start to develop. We have that base model that does the things that we want it to do. It thinks, it concentrates, it does some of those things, but it's not working at its peak. The same way that I'm going to start off with kind of my base car and I want to kind of keep building until I get the car that I really want. Our brain is like that too. We're going to start off with a brain that's perfectly functional and kind of gets us through the day, but we can actually do some things to sort of build a stronger brain that's going to be able to experience some of these different experiences in a healthier way that helps us bounce back. All right. So I told you that our base brain's going to need some work. I did not change this one yet. Our base brain's going to need some work. I'm not going to yet. So if you think about the top 3 challenges, I'm going to ask you the question. If I have 3 challenges in place, top 3 challenges for my brain, can anybody name one? And I'm going to repeat because I want the people online to hear, but that doesn't mean I'm calling you out. Anybody know kind of what's a challenge for your brain? Think about things that start with F. I'm going to give you a clue. Things that start with F. Focus. I heard focus. I heard follow through. Very good. What else? All right. Okay. So moving on. So like getting over things. Okay. That's good. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Any other F words you got? Fog. I like it. Okay. Okay. Fighting urges, things that were getting in the way. All right. Fear. Oh, very good. Very good. Yes. Okay. So great job. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about fear and how fear plays a role in our brain and our ability to be resilient. We're going to talk about focus. Somebody said focus. Anybody feeling a little bit tired after eating lunch? Fatigue. Fatigue's our third F. So fear, focus, and fatigue, and how those experiences in our brain slow us down. They get in the way. They get in the way of our being resilient. We're going to learn some skills to try and get past that, to build that stronger, better brain. All right. I'm moving through my slides. All right. So let's think about focus first, right? How many of you have gotten into the car? Maybe you're even going to do this on the way back. You're driving, you're going where you need to go. You're on the freeway, you're following behind. Does your mind start to go to what do I need to do about dinner when I get home? Or what did I forget to do at home? Who do I need to call? What work am I missing? Do I need to go check those emails that I missed today while I was at this conference? Right? Your brain's going through all of those things, right? One of the things that I tend to do, and this is terrible, so I'm not setting it out as a role model, it's a bad thing. When I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to get something done on, here's an email that I need to respond to, I haven't done it. I leave it up on my desktop. Open it up. Okay, I'll get to that later. And then I'm like in a place on the internet, and I'm like, I need to be able to find that later. I'm going to leave that open. At any one point, you can look at my computer, but you could do it right now. And I've got 50 to 75 different tabs open, right? Because I don't want to forget that I was supposed to do that thing, right? That's what our brain is doing, isn't it? It's like, oh, don't forget that I need to be checking on that. And I need to be doing this over here. And I forgot to, get the money for John to go to his meeting tomorrow, right? So our brain is processing all of those things all of the time, and it really gets in the way of our focus, right? Because our brain is just trying to look at all of those different things. And so I'm going to see if I can do this. There we go. When you think about how your brain is working, a lot of times we think about, okay, if I'm going to sit back in a quiet space and just give myself a little bit of time, my brain's going to calm down. It's going to quiet down. But actually, when they've done research using brain scans, and this is some of this, when you sit quietly, your brain actually picks back up. It's starting to, all of those processes are starting to, your neurotransmitters are turning on, they're connecting, your brain is thinking, right? We're not really good at slowing down our brain processes. When we think we are, I'm going to sit quietly, it actually picks up and gets going, right? That's really what we're finding out. So resting our brain isn't the same thing as resting our body. We're not as good at it. We need to figure it out better. All right. Oop. I went too far. Okay. So let's think a little bit about when we do a better job. When are we good at getting our brain to focus, to really concentrate, to not be all over the place with all of our different ideas? One of the things that helps us do that is when something is novel or new, right? So in this picture, she's seeing something she hasn't seen before. She's very focused on it. Wow, that is new. I haven't seen that. I can see all of the paint strokes in that picture, and I can get a sense of how the artist layered the colors on top of it, right? Those are different things that really draw our focus. Or if you think about a time that you've been really focused recently with another individual in your life, like somebody that you know or care about, right? What was it about that helped draw you into that really focused conversation? I bet it wasn't the same conversation that you have every day with that person. What'd you do at work today? Or how was lunch when you went out, right? It was something new and different. It was novel. Those are things that help us drive our focus. All right. So think about when we learn to drive, right? When you learn to drive, think about how focused you had to be. You were paying attention to flipping the turn signal. You were paying attention to all of the different mirrors as we were taught to do, right? You were thinking about all those different things you're learning. You're probably like anxious as all get out, right? But you're really focused, right? And your parents telling you don't turn on the music, right? You've got to really pay attention. As adults, we don't do that, right? We're paying about 20% of our attention to driving, and we're doing all of those other thinking and rumination. We're doing other things. We're moving into what we think of as our default mode. So we've got our focus mode, learning to drive, but driving as an adult, we're moving into our default mode. We're doing the default. We're used to doing this. This is what we do every day. I'm kind of moving through and my brain's doing whatever it wants, right? So that's something that happens to us. All right. Other things that we think about. So learning to drive, we talked about. Learning to drive as an adult, we're using much less of our attention, our focus. Eating, we're not very focused when we're eating either, right? Maybe those novel meals, some new flavor that you've had, but a lot of time we're just eating. You might even turn around and go, I don't even remember what that tasted like, right? Because we're moving into our default mode. Brushing our teeth, right? Remember how at one point in time you learned you were supposed to brush your teeth for a certain amount of time, right? Most of the time we put our toothbrush up and we have no idea how long we just brushed our teeth for, right? It's habit. We weren't focused. Same thing with talking with our partners, right? That's something that we do all the time and we move into default mode. So our brain's ability to focus is one of those things that we quickly kind of we start to lose our capacity to focus. And what we want to do is to strengthen that, to build that capacity to go back into that focus mode more intentionally with some additional practice. All right. So we talked about focus. Let's talk a little bit about fatigue as well, right? And how does fatigue help us? I mean, not help us. How does fatigue get in the way? Okay, think about, again, we're going to kind of go to some biological things. So think about your kidneys, right? When you think about your kidneys, are you kind of thinking about, I've been working my kidneys for, I don't know, like 10 hours already. Probably need to give them a little bit of a rest. Hopefully not, right? Hopefully not. So we have certain organs in our body that are just going to keep working as long as they're healthy without rest. They sort of are built to kind of keep going. And then we have other parts of our bodies that really do need that rest. They need to take a little break, right? If we are using our muscles to hold up something heavy, after, probably about 5 minutes, your muscles are going to say, I need a rest. I need a break, right? So our organs are set up to do different things. Well, your brain is one of those things that also needs a rest, right? And so when we are spending our time really focused, using our brain very intentionally for a period of time, we're going to start to get fatigued. Our brain is going to get fatigued. It doesn't have, one of the things that's unique about the brain is like when I was holding that heavy box, I had pain perceptors that are telling me, stop it, I need to rest. My muscles need to rest and put it down. Our brain doesn't really have those same things. It doesn't hurt when we're overusing it. We have some other clues, right? Our eyes start to hurt, or we might start to get a headache. But for the most part, our brain doesn't tell us in the same way when we need to, that we're getting tired, that we need to move on. But it is still true. So let's look a little bit at what some of the consequences are of that fatigue. All right. So one of the things we know is that as our fatigue goes up, our fatigue will go up the more time we're on a task. And so if we're doing something for a period of time, we get more and more fatigued. We've probably all experienced that. That's not new to anybody, right? What research tells us is after about 30 minutes, but really up to about an hour and a half is kind of what we can tolerate. And then our brain needs a break. And if you're doing something that is a little bit on the boring or mundane end or repetitive end, it can actually come much quicker, right? What actually happens is our neurons start to get clogged up, like you might think about driving down the road with at night and you start to get bugs on the windshield, right? That's kind of the same thing that happens in our brain. It starts to kind of accumulate things that are slowing it down, and it actually needs a chance to kind of clear some of that out, right? Just as we need a chance to stop, clean off our windshield, have a little break. And so what does that fatigue do? After we've had that hour and a half and our brain is tired, we start to see that we have slowed down reaction time. We're not as quick as we used to be, right? We can't solve the problem. We can't respond to the traffic issue as quickly when we are tired. We also see that our accuracy starts to go down. So if we're doing things it's important that we're getting it right, we're less likely to do that when we are starting to get tired. And we've all experienced that, right? We also see that our performance goes down, right? As we've been trying to do our work for an hour and a half, if we haven't had a break, we start to not be as quick and as good at it. And then also we see that as our fatigue goes up, just our engagement in the task starts to go down. So there's lots of things that are problematic if we're not paying attention to our fatigue. But there is stuff that we can do, right? We're ready to kind of hear, what do we do about all of this? So this is the first thing that we're going to teach you about. It's something called rum. It is not something you drink though, so we'll put that aside. But it really is about some strategies to manage this issue of fatigue and focus. So we talked about we need to kind of clear out our cobwebs in our brain, right? When we've been working hard for about an hour and a half. One of the things, of course, that you can do is rest, right? Rest helps clear out those cobwebs. Now, some folks might be really good at being able to kind of take some moments for mindfulness, really sort of turn off all of those many thoughts, those open pictures on your computer for a bit, and that can be really helpful. But we also know that a lot of times we don't have 30 minutes to take a nap or 25 minutes to go do mindfulness. And so we have to think about other strategies as well, right? So rest is great, it's important, but it doesn't usually solve the problem because we can't take 30-minute naps in between each hour and a half of our work. And when you have that job, please share it with me because that sounds great. But there are other things that we can do. Rest is not the only strategy for this, okay? One of the other things that we can do is we can feed ourselves with uplifting emotions. So uplifting emotions are one of those things that helps also clear out some of those cobwebs. Think about a time that you were at work, let's say. It had been a long day. I can think of a number of those. It'd been a long day. Everybody was kind of just busy doing their works, keeping going through. And somebody makes a joke, right? And everybody just sort of dies laughing about it, right? It's like just kind of hit the right spot, the right moment. Maybe in a Zoom meeting, somebody says something that just cracks everybody up. After that happens, you're actually like refreshed, right? You're kind of brought back into life. You've got energy again. It's kind of amazing, actually, that something that can be that quick can actually bring you back to a level of engagement and focus. I'm going to take a second. And do y'all have your phones? People have phones? Okay. And people online, I'm sure you probably have phones. I want you to go in, pull up your photos. I'm going to pull mine up. Okay. And I want you to find the first photo in your list that is somebody that brings you joy, that makes you laugh, that makes you smile. It can be an animal, it can be a family member, a friend. It can be a picture in your room of your house, right? Find that picture and let's just take 5 seconds to look at our picture and think about the uplifting emotions it brings. All right. I wish I could show y'all mine. I've got 2 of my pets hanging out upside down that somebody sent me when I was away from them, and they actually look like they're cuddling. And I know that that's probably not true, but it brings me joy. It makes me happy. That's something you can do during your time at work, right? How hard is it for us to pull up a picture and think about somebody in our life who's important to us, that brings us joy, that makes us laugh? Sometimes in our meetings, what we will do is we'll do our icebreaker of bring your best dad joke, right? I mean, it's silly, but you know what? It starts us off with some energy. It clears some of those cobwebs up. It helps us refocus. How am I on time? Okay. The last thing in our RUM tip is motivation. Okay, and motivation is talking about how the other thing that helps us get our energy back is to think about meaning, the meaning in what we're doing, what we're trying to kind of get through. Sometimes we need to reground ourselves in what motivates us, right? So if I do a lot of like data stuff, which I know makes people's eyes roll. I like it, but Natalie might have said something about the data that showed up on my screen earlier. I like it. But you know what? If I sit for 4 hours working through a lot of data stuff on my screen, I'm gonna kind of start to have that experience where my brain is a little bit at its worst, probably. If I can stop and think about, why am I doing this? Right? It's not because I really care about what the numbers look like at the end, right? It's because there are children and families behind those numbers, and those numbers help us understand whether we're providing them with the best services to help them have their best outcomes. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want every family to have every best outcome that they can. And if I can reground myself in that meaning behind that work that I'm doing, I get re-energized behind that, right? We can do that for other people too, right? We can have conversations about our meaning with each other, with our worker, with our colleagues, and that helps bring us back some of that energy as well. Okay, so RUM, keep that in mind. It is not the beverage. It's rest, uplifting emotions, and motivations. Those are things that we can do very quickly in between those hour and a halves when we're focused and our brain starts to lose some of its capacity to bring us back into the work. All right. We got one more of our brain things to talk about, and that is fear. So we talked about focus, we talked about fatigue. Now we're going to talk about fear. All right. So when you look at this picture, what do you see? A brown recluse, maybe. I don't know. All right. Do you see the really pretty color of this flower and the really interesting petals and the way that it's set up? No, you see the spider, right? Especially if you're spider phobic. Personally, myself, it's cockroaches. And that's my thing. Sorry, I even brought it up. I saw people, I saw people cringe. If I am in the room that a cockroach is also in, there is nothing else I can attend to. That is the only thing I can attend to. That's it, right? We are biologically set up to do that, right? Because we lived in a world where there was danger all around us. And it was important for us to pay attention to those danger cues and be really ready for it at all times, right? That's what our brain was set up to do. We're no longer living in that same world. There's still danger, but it's different kinds of danger. And it's not all of the same things that our brain is biologically wired to do. And our brain just hasn't caught up with the very quick way that our world is changing. So our brain is set up to go, spider, dangerous, be careful, watch out. All right. What about when we see this? Huh?
Double-edged sword.
All right, double-edged sword, right? When we first see this, we're like, ooh, pretty colors. Ooh, yum. That sounds good, right? But if you think about it, what's the bigger danger to us these days, right? Is it the spider or is it the donuts, right? We have some folks in the room saying, no, this is a spider. I know it is. All right. But so if you think about it, our vulnerability is really that our brain responds to things that it thinks are dangerous in a way that isn't always caught up with the reality of the world. We should also be scared a little bit about these donuts. We have some in the back and they're a little bit scary. So one of the things that means is that our brain, which is focused on this danger, is using some of its attention to think about all of the different things that might be important. So when we're thinking about our past, we're preparing for that danger, right? We're going, oh, where have we been hurt in the past? What do we regret doing? What are the things that went wrong, right? So we're focused in on those things because that was the danger that we're trying to learn from. When we're thinking about the future, we're thinking about what could go wrong? What's going to happen again, right? What should I be worried is going to hurt me? And our brain is thinking about that, right? And we spend most of our time thinking about either the past, our hurts and our regrets, or thinking about the future. What's going to harm us in the future? What are we worried about? What's kind of getting in the way? And we have very little time to spend in that middle part, the present, right? That's not where our brain is set to focus. It's set to focus on what can we learn from the past? What's going to happen in the future? Is that bear going to jump out at me if I go for a walk in the woods? Not, wow, there's really pretty green trees in the woods, and I really like the way the breeze is flowing through. Nope, it's that bear coming at me, right? So that's, again, how we're kind of set up. All right. And as a part of that impact of the fear, we end up in this area that we call an attention zone. So our brain is set up, again, biologically very important. We're just not caught up, and we want to build that better brain, go up from our base model to our closer to our Maserati. And our base brain is setting us up to do things like catastrophize. I'm going to show up to this conference. I'm not going to have any of my slides ready. There's going to be 50 people in the room who think I don't know how to prepare for a presentation. I'm going to fall on my face. Or I'm ruminating. I did that slide wrong. I thought I knew what I was supposed to say and I didn't. I said the wrong thing. Or we're avoiding. I'm never going to do another presentation in front of an audience again. I don't want to put myself in that phase. And all of that is pulling our attention. It's pulling ourselves away from the present and leaving us in this really challenging space that's keeping us from being as resilient as we want. All right. So that's the beginning to start thinking about kind of how we're wired. I'm going to pass off now to my great colleagues.
Okay. How are you doing? All right. Let me hold on one second. I'd like for you to turn to the person next to you and share one thing that you just learned from Dr. Lopez that you did not know before. We'll take about a minute for that.
Sorry.
Maybe it's better up here. I don't even know.
Yeah, actually that might work. But yeah, perfect.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So let's come back together. It's not loud. Thank y'all for doing that. That would be called a turn and learn. This is the educator, the teacher in me. Anyone want to share just quickly? I'll go to each side of the room. Something that you learned that you did not know previously that Dr. Lopez just shared. I'm going to go this side first. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot I have to do the mic.
Okay. So I was actually just saying, it makes sense when I heard it, but I had never said and thought if you're stuck in the past, then you're focusing on hurts and regrets. And if you're looking, to the future, then you're mainly worried about concerns and fears. So it's something I didn't realize until you said it.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you've all heard about when you're driving, there's a reason that the windshield in front of you is so large, is because that's what's coming ahead of you. But when you look behind you in the rearview mirror, the reasons it's small is because we should do our best to not look behind the past to move forward. But our brain is wired in such a way to protect us. It's hard to really combat that. Anyone here? Hey, y'all are all like looking down now that I'm out here.
I just echo what she said. That's all. Yeah.
Same thing. So learned about, okay, thank you so much. And we'll come over here.
It was an hour and a half thing, the 90-minute thing that your brain, the 90-minute thing on your brain needing a tuning out or needing a break. I never really heard that, but it
Yeah,
probably why these workshops aren't longer than an hour.
I
and a
was
half.
thinking that. Actually, I was thinking like, that's really generous because I need like 45 minutes, like 45 minutes, and then I need a break. So my brain struggles with focus, fatigue, and fatigue, focus, fear, and fatigue in many ways. So thank y'all so much. Yes, please do. We're going to bring you the mic though, because we have Zoom people who would like to hear.
Wait. I know you want to.
No, I knew about mindfulness, but that they like you share like looking at a picture of a loved one or a pet can give us energy. So that's just something new for me.
Yeah.
Very good.
So we are actually, I'm glad that that was helpful for you. We're going to take some time to walk through some of the practices that Dr. Amit Sood taught us. Molly did not share, but there were several of us at the MHTTC who were able to go through this training, and it was a 6-month training. We had multiple days, full days of instruction from Dr. Sood, and then we were challenged with taking the practices and behavioralizing them and making them a part of who we were. And then we would have check-ins and we would practice teaching. And so I just have to say, for me personally and professionally, it's probably been one of the most helpful, beneficial, life-changing trainings I've attended. I learned a lot about practices that I was kind of already doing, but then I had the brain research behind it, and I had more of an understanding, and I was being forced to do it. So we're going to go through some of the practices with you all, and we'll start there. So we may have been feeling like this. Actually, what I would invite us to do before we do this, everyone stand up if you wouldn't mind. I should have done this before I started. And let's do about 30 seconds of calf raises if that's okay for you. If it's not, that's okay as well. We learned from Dr. Sood that really sitting for longer than 30, 45 minutes is not good for us, obviously. And so doing calf raises are an easy thing that we can do if we're stuck in like a long therapy session, a long case management, a long meeting, whatever, when we're stuck in traffic. Though I would not tell you to do calf raises with your feet on the brakes and gas. But Dr. Sood taught us that when we do 30 seconds of calf raises, it pushes enough blood through our body to go up to our brains that can help us with that focus issue or an issue with fatigue. So I do these a lot, especially when I'm in long Zoom meetings because I work remotely. So y'all can sit down now. Did you notice anything? Yes, my calves are burning also. So we're about 45 minutes into this. And so I thought that would be a good time. So hopefully today, after we eat a pretty carb heavy lunch, we usually have 30 to 45 minutes before we need some sort of break biologically. And so that's why so many people are getting up, leaving, but take care of yourselves. If you need to stand in the back of the room, please do that. Our hope is that we will feel more zen-like, more calm, more focused on what's sitting right in front of us. And I also just want to name that the work that every single one of us in this room do as leaders, learners, parents, whatever our role is really hard. And so this learning about stress management is just a really great way for us to combat any kind of secondary traumatic stress, compassion fatigue, whatever we may be experiencing. And this quote from Leonard Cohen, forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. I have attended many sessions over the past day and a half, and we have talked really a lot about the pandemic and COVID and the trauma behind that and what we've experienced. And I would say we're doing life differently now. We're talking about things that we know that probably should have been talked about more freely in the past. And so I think it's an opportunity for us to do life differently, to lead in our organizations, to lead as whatever our role may be. And so this is an opportunity. Also, what I love about the name of this program, Stress Management and Resiliency Training, is sometimes when we train people or we talk about mental health, that's an instant stigmatizing statement. But when we talk, especially in schools, about from a lens of stress management, sometimes for our families and our school leaders, that's a little more palatable. And so I just want to name that if you may be experiencing that in your schools or wherever you're working. I've done a lot of Brene Brown's work and just the importance of this work, not with stress management, is understanding how you are neurobiologically wired so that we are better able to connect with others. We're hardwired for connection and that connection is what really gives meaning to our lives. So what I'm going to invite you to do now is we're going to take 2 minutes to do a brain dump. A brain dump is where you're going to write, type, whatever you may have in front of you, everything that you're thinking about. This is a no judgment space. It can be a grocery list, a to-do list, a scribble, things you're feeling, whatever is on your mind. I'd like for you to either type it in your notes on your phone or write it on a piece of paper. And we're going to take 2 minutes for this. About 45 more seconds. About 15 seconds. Okay. How many of you could have used more time? Almost everyone. Okay. How many of you wrote about things and whatever you wrote down had something to do with your professional life? Almost every hand is up. How many of you wrote about things in your personal life? That's a good reminder that we are like a whole person and our identity is both us, whatever we do professionally and personally. I think that's just really important to name. How many of you feel more overwhelmed or stressed after doing that? Oh, very few people. There's just a couple. How many of you did that calm you a bit? So if it didn't calm you, it didn't stress you, what did it do to you? That's what I'm wondering, because there's some people who didn't raise their hands. So kind of in between. Okay. Does anyone do this regularly? You do this regularly? Awesome. I learned this from a leadership coach because there's often times where through stress management training, have become very self-aware of what I'm feeling and what I need. And this works really well for me personally. When I start spinning and I feel like I can't focus, I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll brain dump. And sometimes my brain dump is 30 seconds. Sometimes it's 30 minutes. I'm also very type A. And so crossing things off my list feels really good to me. I don't know if anyone else in here is like that. But what I've noticed over time is that my best brain dumps come at about 3:30 a.m. I think that that's my age, but there was a time in my life where I would get overwhelmed and stressed when I would wake up in the middle of the night because I would think, oh, I'm going to be tired tomorrow. Then I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be anxious. And if I'm anxious, I'm not going to be able to do my work. And so I'd have to give myself a rum moment, not real rum, but I would wake up, write down what I need to write down and go back to sleep. And also what I've noticed in brain dumping regularly is I really have less of a to-do list and more of a to-be list. My list has become more visionary and goal-oriented, which has been really kind of exciting to watch. The next thing we're going to do is write ourselves a permission slip. This comes from Dr. Brene Brown's work, but it's all about setting an intention for this time, for the last 45 minutes that we have together. And so what I'd like for you to do is answer this question. What do you need to give yourself permission to do, feel, or not do in order to show up for this learning experience? And that means this learning experience is our last 40 minutes together when we're going to go through some of these practices. What do you need to give yourself? Do you need to turn your phone off? Do you need to go get coffee? Do you need to go outside and get some sun? Do you need to stand in the back of the room? Do you need a nap? What do you need? And just write that down. Oh, I forgot to tell you that. Write that down. So most of you look like you're finished. I just have a question. And I don't want you to have to pass the mic around. You could just say it out loud. But what was that like for you to write yourself a permission slip? Anyone have a feeling? I'm sorry? Guilty? Oh, I'm so curious about that, but we could talk later. Empowered? Amazing. Guilty is amazing too. Yeah, this is such a great intention setting tool. Anytime we have a meeting, a conversation, a staffing, a case management session, whatever that might be, And okay, so there's 3 skills that Dr. Sood teaches in his stress management work. One is gratitude, the other is kindness, and the third is mindful intention. And so intention setting, this is just one way to set an intention that you can use. So moving on, we just learned from Dr. Lopez about our brain's default mode of fear, what happens when we are feeling fear, focus, or fatigue. But oftentimes when we wake up in the morning, from the moment that we open our eyes, there are tons of open files. Like she showed us the picture of the brain activity when we're at rest. The morning gratitude practice is a simple thing to do. What is the first thing that you all typically do the second your alarm goes off or you wake up? You hit snooze? Anyone else? What do you do?
I pray.
You pray. Fantastic. How does that work for you?
Good, just because like it makes my day better. If I forget to pray that morning, step off that day.
Thank you for sharing. So those of you who are listening, she said that it just makes the day go a little more, I'm going to frames the way that her day starts in a very positive way. How many of you grab your cell phone and immediately check to see if you have any text messages, emails? Raise your hand up high. Yes, a lot of us do that. Usually I'm like, yay, my kid made it home, because my kids are out of the home potentially. So Dr. Sood has developed a practice called the morning gratitude practice. And what he says about the morning gratitude practice is when you wake up, the first thing that we should do is wish people well, wish people silent good wishes, which for some could be prayer. Some people write down gratitude that they have for their day. And he has this amazing video available on YouTube that I used, especially during that 6 months of the training, but we'll experience this together.
Morning gratitude practice with Dr. Sood. Imagine you're waking up this morning. Give yourself a nice stretch. Gently close your eyes, making sure your eyelids are only lightly touching each other. Now, think about the first person in your life who you know cares about you. Recall this person's face. Think of at least one way this person has touched your life. And then send this person your silent gratitude. Now think about the second person. Go back to the first memory of this person. Then send your silent gratitude. Third person. Look into the eyes of this person and notice the color of the eyes. Then send your silent gratitude. Fourth person. Imagine this person is very happy wherever he or she is right now. And send your silent gratitude. Go back in time and look at yourself when you were 8 years old. Try to recall your hairstyle at that time. And then send a warm hello to your 8-year-old self. Think about someone who has passed away who you loved. Give that person a virtual hug. and then send a silent gratitude to that person. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Give yourself a nice stretch again. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Anything you want to add to that, Molly? Dr. Lopez?
I'm trying to
You
think.
don't have to.
You know, I really appreciate this this technique, and it was building that into my life was not something that was a habit that I had. Because my mornings were always very driven. I think from the time I had little kids, right? And it's like, I've got to get all my things done before I get them up, to get their breakfast, to get them ready to go to school, to get everybody off on time, to get to work, whatever. And building this into my life kind of let me know what that was doing to the rest of my day, right? And being able to start my day with time to reflect on the people that are important in my life and start with that as the beginning driving of my day has been really, really, really cool. And I'm glad I learned it. That's
Yeah.
what I'd add.
Thank you. How was that for you all? Y'all just nod your heads. Y'all know that's not a feeling. How did that feel for you? You're still nodding your heads. So that's okay if you don't want to share. I feel the same, Molly. I personally have typically had a daily gratitude practice, but not in the morning. I went through a difficult time probably 6 years ago with some things going on with our family and my professional life and my husband's professional life. And not having known any of the brain research behind the importance of gratitude, I just made an entire year a year of gratitude for myself. And what I would typically find in my long commute home from my job is that I would process my day and totally get into the not even remember driving home because I'm processing my day. And I would think, oh my gosh, I need to tell this person thank you. Oh, I need to email this person. I need to connect with this person. Then I would get home at the end of the day and then life would happen. I have 3 kids and nothing would ever happen. Then I'd feel shame and guilt for not doing it. And so having a year of gratitude, what I did is every day I had a chime that went off on my phone at 11 a.m. And unless I was driving, I would stop what I was doing, send a text of gratitude, handwrite a note of gratitude, call someone, send an email. And y'all, it was incredible what happened to me. And I was going through some really hard things, but it was very healing. And now I know the neurobiology behind it, but 2 things happened. Number 1, it connected me back with people that I had not been intentional about connecting with, which we know mindful intention is important for stress management. And number 2, I was an afternoon coffee girl. I love coffee. I love caffeine. And we could have a conversation about that. But I typically would have lunch and then be like, I need a coffee so I can make it through the day because there's so much going on. And I didn't need coffee anymore because I injected that moment of gratitude. It gave me oxytocin and feel good hormones in my brain that gave me energy that I needed to make it through and have a wonderful day. And so I just want to say that. How many of you have a gratitude? Did you want to say something?
Because, I don't know if you know, this has been something that I feel like I thought it was kind of witchcraft to be like, whatever you think you manifest, like even a couple of years ago, I never heard of anything like that. I don't know if y'all do that, but that seems like it's kind of part of that entire process where you just think about how your gratitude, like, how could that hurt?
Yeah.
So if the more you do that, the more it probably perpetuates in like this really cool
Totally.
way that I think we could all use.
Absolutely. what there is research that proves from the Greater Good Science Center, which is out in Berkeley, that the more gratitude that we notice, the easier it is to be grateful and to notice and be grateful for other things. And so it's like a snowball effect. Like, you know, I get stuck in traffic now on the way here. I live in Houston, and so Austin traffic's a bit different than where I live. And I was like, I'm going to be late. I'm not going to be able to help set up breakfast today. But, you know, I turned it around and I said, you know what? I'm grateful because I have a car. I'm on the highway. I'm going to this amazing conference, and there's a reason and a purpose and an intent in why I'm stuck in this traffic right now. So that's kind of a silly example, but I start to see everything as something to be grateful for. Even when today I get a call from the nurse with my youngest son. The nurse was supposed to be at our house to give him his infusion for his Crohn's disease, and they didn't call me. They called me in the middle of the keynote. I'm like, there's a reason and a purpose behind this, and the right person's going to be there. So it has really changed kind of my thought process personally. Go ahead. Sorry, Molly.
Nope. I'm getting good exercise. I like it.
Thank you. I just really love, first of all, this training, and gratitude is my thing. And but I find it so interesting. I'm a new bride or wife or whatever for less than a year. And so my husband said to me on one or two occasions, now be careful with all these compliments you give and all this gratitude that you express, because especially in the workplace, people won't trust you. That people become suspicious of folks that compliment and show gratitude and say thank you and say kind things. And I remember when we were dating, we dated for about a year and a half before we got married. It was so difficult for him to receive. And because I was constantly, expressing gratitude and complimenting. It's a thing. It's just who I am. And it must be releasing something inside of me, like you were saying for you, that, what do you call that?
Oxytocin.
Yeah. I must have a whole 5 or 6 gallons.
Yes.
Because that's just my thing. But I thought it's so interesting that he would point out that some people become suspicious of people who present themselves that way or express that. So I've been trying to hold back, but it keeps slipping out.
I think your husband knows my husband because I often hear that, and I'm going to be my true authentic self. And you know what? We've been married 27 years. His emotional intelligence has improved, and like, it's so amazing. Like, he's starting to do it too. So anyways, and I would say, like, what I've learned from Brene Brown's work about trust is we have to be vulnerable in order to trust, and we have to trust in order to be vulnerable and in order to be vulnerable. And when we meet someone for the very first time, the first thing we look for is how vulnerable that they are. And sometimes gratitude is a part of that vulnerability. And I mean, at least with my husband, it goes way back, and we're working through that 27 years later. Did you want to say something? Go ahead, Molly.
Let me make a quick question, and I'll bring you the mic. Not question. So think back again to our picture there with a timeline and the thinking about the past and the thinking about the future, right? We are biologically built to be thinking about the danger in that. If I accept your gratitude, are you going to hurt me? Like, are you using me? Right. So we're falling back into the past or the future, right? What's the risk in the future? What's the risk in the past? And it's our intention to try and be in the present, right? To be grateful for what I am experiencing right now, to find the gratitude there versus thinking about what may harm me in the future. And it's back to the biology, right? And people have had experiences that have ingrained that biology sometimes, right? To be even more kind of worried. But again, it's kind of what we're built to do. And we have to rewire ourselves to be able to really focus on the present and where the gratitude and novelty is in our present.
And we can rewire our brain. And it's just small things like practicing gratitude. What you said, Molly, just made me think about, when we're thinking about the past and we're thinking about the future, we're really in a space of judgment. Or we're judging what happened in the past, which is affecting our present because we're thinking about the future and how that's related. And when we are super judgy, it's harder for us to be empathetic and self-compassionate and compassionate towards others. So I just kind of throwing in some Brene stuff too. I apologize. Go ahead.
Thank you for sharing this. So there is a book called The Magic Book by Rhonda Byron. I believe that her last name is Byron. It's almost like a 28-day curriculum to show gratitude. So it's really amazing. She takes you on a journey for 28 days, and then you continue that pattern. So you show gratitude when you go grocery shopping. So that I have a car, gratitude that I have a car, gratitude that I have money to put fuel in my car, gratitude that I have a job to buy that fuel, and that I have this body and I can walk. And so finding gratitude in each and every little action that you do in daily life. So it's an amazing book. It's called The Magic.
The Magic.
By Rhonda. And her last name is, I think it's pronounced Byron, but it's Byrne. Rhonda. Yeah, that's the one.
Rhonda Byron.
Rhonda. The first name is Rhonda, RH. Yes.
I am downloading that today.
It's an amazing, yeah.
Thank you.
I had a friend who went through that. It's like she went through some training about that, and then she shared with me.
Wow.
It's very amazing. So gratitude, I really believe in that.
Thank you. We have one more. I love that we're talking and it's not just us talking at you. So thank you. Thanks, Julie.
Well, I survived a plane crash when I was a teenager. And I remember seeing the rest of the people crying and grabbing their crosses. And I remember in my head, since I was a teenager, I was going, if I survive this is going to be the coolest experience of my life. Wow. And when I did survive and I was able to walk out without a scratch and the plane was on fire and everything, I look back at it and I wouldn't change it.
Wow.
At all. And with the rest of the people all crying, oh, God save us. I was like, die with dignity. Also, I was like, geez, this is your last moments on earth. Or drink, be happy. I don't know.
Wow.
But, and there was a pregnant next to me that was going to give birth. And I was like, no, I'm going to lose it. If you do that, I'm going to lose it. Right now, I'm fine. But I wouldn't change it for the world.
Wow. I'm so glad you're here. I have so many questions. I want to talk to you.
I'm just thinking a little bit what you say. Somebody say something about that other people will say that, oh, you are so happy and you look suspicious, or so grateful and you look suspicious. I feel that some people may not be that perceptive to what is gratitude or what is to be more self-aware. So it's pretty normal for people that is in other fields to be like, I don't know. I remember we have a dinner and I was laughing, and then my brother-in-law was like, why are you laughing so much? It's like, well, I can laugh. I mean, but for them, that there are another personalities that are more like in the business, they are bankers or something. They are like, what's up with saying thank you, like whatever, so I just feel like other fields or people working in other fields may not be that self-aware, because we need to be self-aware all the time in our work. I will have clients that say, but I was so nice with this person and this person was so mean to me. And then it's like, well, maybe you were doing the right things with the person that was not ready at the moment, or was just an inadequate person, but it doesn't mean there is something wrong with you. It just means that it's not the appropriate person for you or stuff.
Thank you for sharing. And that reminds me, so Dr. Sood is an MD who works at the Mayo Clinic. I'm saying that. I want to say Mayo. I don't know. It's just my Texas Mayo Clinic. And he actually created this course for health professionals. And it is a required course for pre-med students who are in their it's not called a fellowship. What's it called when they're during their residency? It's a required course this stress management course. And so I love that it is helping those helpers, and I'm hoping it will help all helpers, because even business professionals are helpers, right? Right. So just so you know, here is his website. So we just touched on kind of one of the practices of gratitude. He has many, many more on his website. The second practice, or the second way to manage stress, according to Dr. Sood's research, is through mindful presence. And I like to say, because I've worked with different levels of educators, from, you know, teachers to principals to superintendents and school board members, that when I say mindfulness or meditation, they just turn you off. So mindful presence does not mean you're doing yoga. It could mean you're doing yoga on the beach, but it really just means you're intentional and you are where your feet are. It isn't about emptying your mind or the present moment. It's intentional present. It's your conscious experience at the moment. It's like when you're eating your food, you're eating your food. How many of you thought about the texture of the sandwich or the potato salad or the brownie that you ate at lunch? Did anyone think about that? Some of us did. Amazing. So it's when you're eating, you're eating. You're experiencing all five senses. It's when you're walking, you're walking. You're thinking about the crunch of the gravel below your feet. You're thinking about the trees that are around you, the birds maybe that you're hearing, the traffic that may be going by. So I want to get this right. Life is a series of experiences. If you add up all those experiences, that becomes your life. I think of it as like a patchwork quilt. Each square gets stitched together to form a beautiful pattern. Dr. Sood further elaborates that every experience has two components: attention and then interpretation. Life plus experience equals attention, interpretation. If I can influence my attention and interpretation, I can change my experiences, in which case I can change my life. So you can change the pattern of your quilt. And this really leads to a lot of awareness. Dr. Sood defines emotional literacy as self-awareness plus awareness of others plus self-compassion plus compassion for others. And really that awareness is how our brain how our brain operates attention. So with mindful noticing or mindful presence, this helps us find moments when we guide our attention externally, focusing more in depth on the world that surrounds us. He calls this the SOY approach, or search outside yourself approach. So looking at these pictures, what do you think that they may be thinking about outside of themselves? Let's look at this one. Or what might you notice if you were sitting at this table? Looks like they're ordering something yummy. What might you notice? They're having a great time. I really like the tattoos. It's a friendly place.
Good service.
They're connecting, good service. The weather, what do you notice about the weather?
Oh, nice side.
Yeah, and they have longer sleeves on. Like, I don't think we could do that outside. It's like when you go to a restaurant, you don't tell the server this, you tell the, my Lord, I'm so sorry. You don't tell the service to get whenever. You pick the food that agrees with your appetite and your palate. If we leave our brain alone to do its own thing, it will tell the server, can you get me some stale thoughts that make me feel unhappy tomorrow? Left to itself, the human brain generates unhealthy, negative, yucky thoughts, which our brains are wired to do that. So there's 3 domains to attention. The first domain is the world, which is comprised of our senses. The senses engage with what is interesting or novel, pleasant, or painful. Our attention is drawn to the threat and the novelty. The second domain of attention is our mind. There are 2 types of thoughts that we experience: intentional thoughts or automatic thoughts. What do you all think influences our automatic thoughts? Our experiences, right? It's that whole image that Molly showed us with the past and then the future. A recent addition and the third domain of attention is smartphones. We always get a lot of questions about this. And Dr. Sood talked a lot about this to us. What he said is that an average person checks their smartphones 80 times a day, once every 12 to 15 minutes. Some of us even more. I'm thinking about my children. I'm like, that's a low number. Yeah. Because of the novelty that the phone can offer. Y'all heard about the dopamine hits that you receive every time you receive a notification, either on your wrist or on your phone or on your computer. While being informed isn't bad, beyond a limit, greater information provides little additional utility. It only increases our anxiety and pulls us away from our deeper thoughts, experiences, and connections. And as a result of the smartphones, we spend most of the time in automatic thinking or with the screen while life is happening elsewhere. I'm going to give you an interesting statistic in just a minute. But we have some opportunity to practice skills to help with this situation and bringing our attention back into the world. For people, we're going to talk about the 2-minute rule. So the 2-minute rule, I just want to share with you, has actually been for our family like one of the most beneficial tools in really reconnecting. So the 2-minute rule is essentially when you go home at the end of a day, or maybe you haven't seen your significant other, your child for the whole day, you pretend like you have not seen this person in a year. And for 2 minutes, you give that person your undivided attention. You don't ask questions, you don't correct. And that's really hard for me personally, and I would imagine for many parents in here, especially for my kiddos. I used to drive home from work and think, okay, as soon as I talk to Trey, I need to know, do you have anything I need to sign in your folder? Do you have any homework? Do you need money for your field trip? What's going on with this test later this week? Did you unload the dishwasher? Right? Typically, we walk in and the first thing we want to do is bombard them with questions. But this 2-minute rule is about just being with that person for 2 minutes. And also, Dr. Sood talks really intently about looking in that person's eyes, which I know feels kind of interesting. It did for me with my boys. I have 3 sons. And I know, and I would just want to remind you that in some cultures that may or may not be appropriate. But really looking into my son's eyes and asking them, or not asking them, just like giving them 2 minutes of undivided attention, noticing the color of their eyes, the shape of their eyes, their eyebrows, whatever it might be. There's something that happens in that 2 minutes. Have you done this, Dr. Lopez? Anything you want to share about that? You don't have the mic. Okay. So that's okay. Did you want to share? We can. Okay. Okay. I'm actually going to fast forward through this just really quickly. So as I was mentioning about the 2 minutes rules at home, look at the color of the person's eyes. Notice your physical proximity. So it's not like I go home and I'm talking to Trey and I've got an iPad between us or my phone between us. It's really just being in that space with him. Remind them that you care about them. Use humor. Use warm words, and do not try and improve anyone. Dr. Sood talks a whole lot about the 3 degrees of separation. And actually, we kind of talked about that too, the 3 degrees of like, when we're kind, it's easier to be kind, or when we're grateful, it's easier to find gratitude in different spaces. I have a question. What do y'all think about this?
So is this for the person that's sharing, or we're not talking?
We're just listening. You can use humor. You're just not asking. That's a really great question. So those of you who didn't hear, she said, is the person who's just listening, are they sharing? Are they asking questions? The only guideline is you're not asking questions. You're just listening. You're not trying to improve, or like I was giving the example, I'm not going to ask Trey if he unloaded the dishwasher when I get home today. Okay, go ahead.
But you are able to talk.
Yes, you're
Okay,
able to
so you're
talk.
engaging in conversation.
2 minutes
Okay.
of just engaging conversation.
Sorry, I misunderstood it
That's
just to be
okay.
like staring for 2 minutes.
Oh.
Just the best eye contact you've ever had?
I would say it's just being with that person, like really being with them and not trying to improve them. For example, I have not seen my oldest, my middle, and my youngest son in about 10 days. I have not seen them. And so I'm going home later today and I can't wait. And I think I'm going to give them the 20-minute rule. It's going to be great. So, but I will tell you at first, because I'm very task oriented, they were like, why are you just like not asking me questions? So it took some time. Did you want to say something, Molly?
Yeah, I'll just add for a second. When I went home last night, actually, when I walked in the door, the first greeting I got was from my dog, right? From my puppy. I'd been gone all day. She came running over, jumping all over me, and I stopped. I put down all my stuff. I sat there. I pet her, played with her, just gave her undivided attention, right? We think about that sometimes with our pets, right? Who come running to us, but with the people in our lives, frequently we are very mission focused, right? It's like, what do I need to get done? What do I need to move on to? And so it's really deciding to take a second to really do that reconnection. And it can be awkward. Like if you don't say anything, and the first time I tried it, I didn't say anything, right? I was just, let me just see what happens, right? And folks aren't used to it. It feels different. They might be going, what are you doing? And that's okay. And it's not like you can't tell them, but it's like, I'm trying this new thing where I just make sure that like we have a chance to just really kind of be together for a few minutes before we move on to, what's on the agenda for this evening to get done. It's really nice, I have to say, in the same way that I love when my dog greets me at the door and we have a chance to just have, 5 minutes of playtime to reconnect, right? We should be doing that with all of the people that are important in our lives. And you can do it at work too, right? It's when I come to a meeting with somebody, it's okay to kind of say, hey, let's just connect for a second, right? And we've tried to actually even create that opportunity in most of our meetings. So we spend a little time connecting around us as people before we dive into the work that we're going to get doing. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think we do a really good job of that in our workspace. Did you want to say something?
Yes. So I know that it says, about eye contact. I think another thing that's important, especially for like spouses or children, is that touch, like just being close, have your leg close to them or your leg sitting on their lap or like rubbing their head or something. That gets through to my kids a lot, just that touch.
Absolutely. And I almost brought this up. Do y'all know the research about hugs? What's the research? And now, sorry, Molly. Yeah. Well, I was in a training earlier this week and someone said 2 minutes. So there is some research. I apologize. I don't know where it's from, but when you hug, of course, this is someone that you're close to and love and they're comfortable with you hugging them. But when you hug someone, it's not just like oh, I missed you. It's a really deep, I call it a deep hug. I'm telling you, anyone who's ever done this, something happens like physically when you hug someone for an extended period of time. Do you want to know? You know what it is? Tell me what it is, please. I'm sure it's different.
For me, the hugs are important because I've come so many close to being dead almost. I mean, I've been fired by tanks when I worked for the United Nations, been in 2 car crashes. I was trapped 2 hours in one. So I got out and then I went all the way to the other side of the street. So for me, I'm very touchy. And I know people at work are like, what? But for me, it's like, I've been there and I'm happy to see you because tomorrow I may not see you. Wow. And I lived it. It's not that I saw it in a movie. No. And when you come so close to death, you appreciate people in very different ways that you don't if you don't have those experiences. So I know sometimes I'm very touchy and people are like, whoa, he's going to come and give me a hug. But for me, it's like, I may not see you tomorrow because I've gone through that experience. So for me, it just When I hug someone, it kind of makes me validates you're alive. You're alive. You're still here. You can still make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, me too.
Must be a mindful, I would say that's a mindful intention practice because you're with that person for that moment. So I think I've got like 2 or 3 more minutes. Okay, because I know we need to talk about the GIPRA. So as Dr. Lopez mentioned, this is really like a 3 to 5 hour training. And what Dr. Sood teaches is there are 4 practices to manage your stress. We have just like touched on gratitude. We've touched on mindful intention. There's also kindness and self-kindness. And then the 4th one is resiliency, which is putting it into practice in a regular way. You want to say anything about that before okay. So, what are your thoughts? We have like 3 minutes. Okay, hold on. I'm not even giving you a chance to talk about your thoughts. So curious moments is another part of mindful intention. And this is like noticing the world around you in a different way. So I'm going to actually show you a picture for the last couple of minutes. Take a moment and let's take literally less than a minute to just think about what you notice about this daisy. Y'all can say it out loud and I'll repeat it for the people who are on Zoom. It's wet, so there's like water droplets on it. It's not symmetrical, which is hard for some of us, including me. It's perfect and beautiful the way it is. Say that again. No 2 daisies look alike. It's unique. Some people say it looks like a bee actually landed on this one because there's less pollen in the middle.
Edges are kind of not even around the edges of the petals. I really like that.
One side is more fuller than the other. And so the purpose in a curious moment, and this is just a small example, is that there are so many things happening around us all the time that we barely notice. All of us probably drive home from work or go to the grocery store on the same route every single day, but do we really notice what's around us? Do we notice the license plate in front of us or the tail lights in front of us, or if there's dust on our dash when we drive home, or the person in the car next to us at a red light who may be crying? Like, do we notice those things? And so Dr. Sood's research suggests or encourages us to just be mindful of the everyday moments and commit to noticing one new thing each day. One of the things that he'll have us do, and we can actually do this right now, if you'll take a look at one of your hands. And I'd like for you to notice, is your ring finger longer than your pointer finger? Have you ever noticed that? Has anyone ever looked at their hands like that? How many of you have looked at your hands and noticed about your fingers? A couple of us. Like, I've had these hands for 48 years and I had them for 46 before I was like, oh, my ring finger is just a tad bit longer than my pointer finger. So it's intentionally and mindfully noticing the things around us so that we're not constantly in this state of just doing. Okay, hold on one second. I know I gotta go. So did you want to say anything?
Just real quick, again, we're training our brain, right? We're creating the brain we want to have. During COVID, I did a lot of walking, as many of us did, and I try to keep doing that. And I try to think of something different on each walk that I might want to notice about the houses that I pass or about the landscaping that they have, right? So each time I'll go around, I'll say, I'm going to notice as I walk, like, what do their chimneys look like? Right? Or who has a wreath outside the front door? Because I was just walking and I couldn't tell you anything about the houses that I passed. Yeah.
And so pulling in some of Dr. Kristen Neff's work, who's a self-compassion expert, Small changes matter. What fires together wires together. And when we're doing things that are different in order to kind of rewire our brain, sit there for at least 20 seconds. So if we happen to notice a flower or something when we're walking, or a chimney, think about it for at least 20 seconds, because that's how our brain can start to do things differently and create new neural pathways. We're really fortunate that our brains there is neuroplasticity about our brains, and we can train ourselves. So it has been an honor to see you and to be with you. And
Notice there are some extra surveys at your table that we hope you will fill out for us. There's also going to be, of course, the QR code at the door that we want you to scan. Because we're MHTTC, we have our own separate forms. So if you do get a second to fill those out, thank you very much. And you can just leave them and we'll pick them up. Anything else you want to say, Julie? There's extra surveys over here if you need them. And thank you all.
Yeah.